Disaster today for Labor, with confirmation it has not got a hold of the economy. The Reserve Bank Governor has defied Jim Chalmers and has decided to keep interest rates on hold. The cash rate remains at 3.85%, and this result has shocked economists and financial markets who expected a 1/4 percentage point rate cut. And the Treasurer could barely hold back his disappointment.
I don't second-guess decisions taken independently by the bank or its board. I don't make predictions or preempt future movements in interest rates. I'm focused on my job, and the Governor has an opportunity to talk through some of the considerations that they weighed up around the Reserve Bank boardroom table over the course of the last couple of days.
So, what does all this mean? Well, the biggest message the RBA has sent today through its cautious approach is that cost of living is still an issue in this country.
I'm also really conscious that we don't want to end up having to fight inflation again. We want to make sure we've nailed it. And as I said, the biggest thing here is that it wasn't really directionally where we think we're heading in terms of easing.
I mean, if the RBA was so confident that inflation was indeed under control, they would have cut rates today. Everyone expected a cut today. The RBA had the green light from the market and from economists. It was meant to be guaranteed good news for mortgage holders. But the board is worried about cost of living, and it could get worse under this government. There are no guarantees that things are going to get better, despite the Treasurer's assurances.
I've got my own job to focus on. The Reserve Bank, its board and its Governor has its own job to focus on. Now, we have the same objective here, which is to get inflation down. We've made good progress together, but we've got different responsibilities. And I decided some time ago that the best way for the Reserve Bank to discharge its responsibilities is without political commentary or anything that might be construed as political interference.
Well, let's talk about inflation. The CPI figure for the month of May came in at 2.1%, down from 2.4% in April. But the underlying inflation was down to 2.4% in May from 2.8%. But this is key. The Governor, Michelle Bullock, says that she needs more economic data to be truly satisfied.
There was a couple of components in that monthly CPI that suggested to us that the quarterly CPI might be a little bit higher than what we've been forecasting in May. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're off track, but we just want to get the data to confirm that we are pretty much on track.
Yet Labor will keep telling you it's slayed the inflation dragon.
Under the life of this government, we've got inflation down.
With the continued reduction in inflation down to 2.1%.
And in fact, at the same time, we brought inflation down.
Get real wages growing again at a time that we're getting inflation down as well.
We've also seen inflation coming down.
Working together, we have brought inflation down without sacrificing people's jobs.
Well, not according to the RBA. It said wages growth remains elevated and that productivity is weak. And Labor has done nothing to help productivity in its first term. In fact, many of their policies are hurting. Firstly, it's dished out energy subsidies willy-nilly. Now, we knew that when they peter out, that will put pressure on inflation. They were always going to be temporary. In the last 6 months, inflation figures have been temporarily and falsely altered by Labor's electricity subsidies, both state and federally, because of course it means that you and I are helping to pay for each other's electricity bills. Subsidies are a great way to trick the Reserve Bank into thinking that Labor has got a big hold on the economy. Secondly, through record government spending. In fact, Labor's spending will reach more than $30,000 per person within 4 years, eclipsing government expenditure during the pandemic and reaching the highest per capita levels on record. Already this year, government spending has been running at $1,000 per capita, above the pandemic peak of $25,500. It means that the Prime Minister is spending more now than what we ever did during the pandemic. And of course, we know the result. We know the result of all this. $1.2 trillion in debt. And of course, it's the same for the states. Take Victoria, for example. The Allen government is continuing to spend more than it takes in. And thirdly, we've got to look at record migration. More than 1.1 million migrants have come into this country since Labor was elected in 2022, artificially propping up GDP. So it's easy for Anthony Albanese and the Treasurer to say, oh, well, look, we haven't had a recession, inflation has come down, but everything's gone up and inflation stayed higher for longer. And the opposition says it's getting harder and harder for families.
The average mortgage holder will pay around $1,900 more every month in additional interest payments than what they were paying before Labor came to office. Australian households are on their knees. Industries are collapsing, businesses are falling over because Labor cannot manage the economy. We've seen around the world comparable jurisdictions bring down interest rates sooner than what we are seeing in Australia.
The reality is the RBA has hesitated today because Labor cannot give it the assurances it needs to cut rates. And this is certainly not the economy that once made us one of the best in the world. And Labor's constant platitudes and its round tables like its upcoming economic summit will not change it.